Hi, I'm Lisa, and this is Second Peak. For most of my life, I believed discipline would fix everything. If I could just be disciplined enough with food, disciplined enough with exercise, disciplined enough with my schedule, disciplined enough with prayer life, then I would finally feel under control. And from the outside, it probably looked admirable. But what I didn't realize was that discipline can slowly turn into something else. It can turn into a control that takes over your life. If you're new here, for most of my life, I struggled with my body image, dieting, trying to control everything about my health, food, exercise routines, mental math, numbers, exercise, calories. And in midlife, something finally shifted for me. And on this channel, I share what changed and what freedom actually looks like for me now. So from the outside, discipline can look like a virtue, and sometimes it is. But there's a version of discipline that's driven by fear. Fear of gaining weight, fear of losing control, fear of what people might think. And so I tried everything. I tracked everything. I tracked calories, I tracked macros, I tracked how much exercise I was doing. I used apps like MyFitnessPal and Carb Manager, often at the same time, just to double check everything. And before apps existed, I carried around a little pocket notebook that had fat grams, and a notebook where I would write everything down that I ate. Every bite, every calorie, every gram of fat. And at the time, I thought that was health. I thought that's what was required. But what it really was false control. And when it came to dieting methods, I tried everything. And intermittent fasting, 1-day fasts, 2-day fasts, egg fasts, sardine fasts, protein-sparing modified fasts, liquid fasts, slim fast, not necessarily in that order. But if there was a way to manipulate food or timing to lose weight, I probably tried it. Oh, food combining. And every time I believed the same thing, that this time it's going to work. And I remember one time back in college, I decided I was going to do a liquid fast. Not for a day, not for a week, for 12 weeks, while I worked in a restaurant. So for 12 weeks, nothing touched my lips except broths and teas and protein shakes. And at the time, I thought that was incredible discipline. And it was, really. But when it ended, the pendulum swung completely in the other direction. And I went and ate an entire box of cereal and 12 donuts in one sitting. And of course, it absolutely wrecked my stomach. But the heavier weight that I carried afterward was not physical. It was guilt and shame. And that cycle of extreme restriction followed by binging repeated itself in different forms for years. Later, after I became a Christian, something interesting happened. My church practiced Lent. And when I learned about fasting during Lent, my immediate thought was, oh, bonus, I can lose weight. And even though I would replace my lunch hour with devotional reading and prayer, if I'm really honest, my heart was often more focused on the possibility of weight loss than on communion with God. And that realization was really uncomfortable, because what I thought was spiritual discipline was just still really mixed up in my old mindset about control and dieting. So there's a writer, her name is Tilly Dillahay, and she wrote something that really captured this mindset perfectly. And I realized that I had believed what she wrote, that this fast, this week, is going to solve all my dieting and self-control problems forever and get me into the lean body of my dreams. That was the mindset. It wasn't spiritual surrender. It was just another form of trying to control my body. And eventually, I began to realize something, that my problem was that I never lacked discipline. I had an overabundance of discipline. The real issue was that I was trying to control things that weren't really meant to be controlled that way. My body, my future, my sense of worth. And what began to change for me was learning just to loosen that grip, not abandoning discipline, but stopping the worship of discipline, stopping the belief that if I could just be disciplined enough, I could engineer the perfect life. And peace doesn't come with that kind of control. Peace comes with trust. So if you've ever struggled with that tension between discipline and control, between wanting to honor God with your body, but also feeling trapped by food or weight, you're not alone. I lived in that mindset for decades. But there really is another way to live. And in future videos, I'll share more about what helped me finally step out of that vicious cycle. But before we finish, I'm curious about something. Has anyone else ever struggled with this tension between fasting and dieting? And what was meant to be a spiritual discipline just became mixed up with weight loss or control? I'd really be interested in hearing your experience, because I have the feeling that I'm not the only one who's wrestled with that.